Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Let's talk about foundational principles of our investing philosophy here. Because I get a lot of comments all the time from people and they'll ask very good questions, very insightful questions, but sometimes it kind of betrays that maybe they're misunderstanding a little bit of some of the foundational things that I try to cover a lot, the kind of rules that you want to set for yourself when you invest in anything and not deviate from. So I've made a list of 10. Let's talk about them. The first, calm, unemotional investing makes the most money. And, this is about not FOMOing into things, not panicking and selling, not capitulating. Calm and unemotional is where you make the most money because when you follow some ridiculous trend for the wrong reason, when you go into a momentum stock or you haven't done your due diligence, that's when you're going to lose the most money. So just taking a step back when you feel panic in a market, take a step back and wait a day. Do nothing. Most of the time, you'll be fine. It's very rare. In the TCG world, it's nearly impossible that something goes to zero. But even in the stock market, very rarely does a company go bankrupt. And so it's not as if you take a day to think about something, suddenly the company's going to go bankrupt out from under you and the value of the stock you hold in it will go to zero. That's almost never happens. And again, in the TCG world, as the prices go down and down and down, more buyers will step in. These are physically existing collectibles. They will not go to zero. And so there will always be someone to buy it. And on the long timeline, every one of these things becomes more scarce and more valuable over the long timeline. And so you don't need to panic and do something too quickly. So just be calm, be unemotional about it. And part of that unemotionality is setting rules like this for yourself and then just following them. Just be disciplined, unemotional, and follow the rules. And over 20 years of investing in the stock market, these are the kind of things that I realized when I haven't done this stuff is when I've made the biggest mistakes and I've lost the most money because of it. So number 2, ignore the short-term noise. Ignore the tweets, ignore the leaks, ignore the rumors. Ignore ridiculous stuff like that. Don't try to front run the market because as often as a rumor turns out to be true, it'll turn out to be false. And the short-term noise also includes things like TV interviews for stocks, opinion segments, guys like Jim Cramer, just ridiculous clowns like that who sell entertainment disguised as information. And so the short-term noise will get you in trouble because you'll read an article and it'll say, such and such company or such and such magic product or whatever, such and such game or anything is terrible. And you might take it too closely to heart immediately and you'll make a bad decision selling something you shouldn't have sold. And this is another place where some of the worst decisions I've ever made in 20 years in the stock market have been because I read some article, I saw some news headline, and I panicked, and then I sold, and looking back, I should have just held and done nothing. Number 3, focus on the long-term theses, and this is one I really like because as I get older, I accumulate more experience watching this pan out positively. Look for the long-term theses that are undeniable and have positive feedback loops. And of course, my favorite one is humans keep making more humans who make more humans who make more humans. It's a positive feedback loop. Yes, as people rise into the middle class, their birth rates go down, but most of the world is still not in the middle class. And so for probably another 50 years, we can expect birth rates to just go up. And for population to grow, really, more so than the birth rate itself to go up. But the population will keep growing, which fuels more markets, it's more demand for things, and it means that your investment in businesses or your investment in stocks or real estate or collectibles, they will be very likely to go up on the long timeline. It's these long-term theses. Particularly for the TCG world, a good long-term thesis is that Magic is the most popular game, and it's probably going to remain the most popular game. Probably Pokemon will not surpass it, almost certainly not Yu-Gi-Oh! Flesh and Blood is probably going to grow, but it's not going to become the most popular game probably within 10 or 20 years. It could take a long time if it could ever surpass Magic. And so making investments in sealed Magic product is fairly safe because Magic will continue to have the biggest player base, the best growth, and going forward long term, there will always be demand for the products. And that's a good long term thesis that can drive your investment. So look for those kind of subtle and simple kind of things you can identify, hopefully, that are positive feedback loops. And to some extent, Magic being the most popular game kind of is because it brings in new players. Those players want to buy, to greater or lesser extents, older product, and that eats up older product out of the market, which raises the prices. Number 4, don't let price drive your sentiment. Man, this is a big one for me. I see it all the time in comment sections on news articles about stocks and things like that. People get so emotional when the price of an asset goes down. They say that the asset must now just be a terrible asset. You know, if you liked Boeing stock at $250, well, then you're going to absolutely hate it at $120. And people are just crazy irrational like this. You know, when food goes on sale, you buy more of it. When you want to buy a new car, you wait for year-end rebates and discounts. But when people are talking about investments in stocks or in sealed TCG product or anything else, suddenly the thing going on sale makes them think they don't want to buy it. It's totally irrational, but it's how we're wired. So you need to not let the price of a product drive your sentiment. What you need to do is figure out your own fundamental analysis. You need to figure out what aspects, what measurable things of a product make it valuable in your eyes that you think will drive its price in the future. Drive it up or drive it down. You need to identify those things for yourself, and then you need to unemotionally evaluate those on your own so that you can tell, hey, this is wildly underpriced right now. I should buy. The wide thin net, number 5. So this is something that I talk about on here a lot. None of us is smart enough to identify the best products. Yes, master sets will perform better than standard sets. Which standard sets will perform best of all the standard sets? We don't know. But thinking that you are always going to identify the best thing is foolish. You will not. And over the long timeline, you will eventually realize that you can't do it. No one can do it. You know, Warren Buffett did not have a career that consisted of always identifying the best companies to buy beforehand. What he did was have a disciplined set of rules that he always followed, and that led him to incredible wealth. But he did not have a crystal ball that told him what the best performing companies in the future would be. He did his own fundamental analysis, and then he carried out his business unemotionally, and that's how he became so fabulously wealthy. You need to do the same thing. Throw that wide thin net. Figure out how much of every expansion of each game you want to invest in you should be buying. And then buy that amount unemotionally at what you think is a reasonable price. Put it in your closet, and then come back and look and say, now, I think maybe this set, maybe that set, maybe the master set will perform better, and I'll buy some extra of that. But saying, hey, Crimson Vow, it's obviously dead money forever because it had a very bad release and booster boxes immediately cratered to like $80 shipped. You know, people said the same thing when Strixhaven came out. They said this is a bad set. Oh, the Mystical Archives are too common. When AFR came out, people said, we do not care, it's a bad set compared to Modern Horizons 2 that we're still having a hangover from. And now we look at Strixhaven and AFR. Both of them are merely months out of print, and their draft and set boxes are already at $100 plus. So, you know, these sentiments of this is a terrible set, time changes that. Time dries up the supply. Bad attitudes about it initially when it releases causes there to be fewer print waves and puts less supply in the market long term, which causes the price to go up. So a lot of these things are self-regulating, and the idea that you can predict them is foolish. Cast the wide thin net, buy a standard amount of everything, and then a little extra of what you think the winners are. Number 6, catch the falling knife. Yes, I love this one, and you'll see people on especially comment sections on stock investing websites, and they'll just throw away around this saying about, oh, I don't catch a falling knife. It's stupid to catch a falling knife. And the kind of figurative expression they're trying to make is that when the price of something is falling, it's like a knife falling. It's like you reach out and try to catch that blade, you're going to cut yourself and get hurt. And it's really weird because people will also say, when others are fearful, you should be greedy. And well, that means that when the prices are down and people are selling because they're fearful, you should step in and buy. But then don't catch a falling knife means that when prices are down and people are fearful and they're selling, you shouldn't buy. And the reality is you should. You are not going to time the bottom. You are not going to be able to predict the bottom. No one can. It's only in retrospect that we see it and we feel like, oh, we should have bought then. But in the moment when you have to buy, you don't know where that point is. And so what you do is when a product's price is going down, a stock price, any other asset, you buy on the way down. You incrementally buy again and again and again as it goes down. Eventually it'll bottom. Maybe it'll be a false bottom, but it'll bottom and start coming up. You keep buying. And by doing that, you average in a price that's around the bottom because you're not going to predict it. And there will always be tons of people who will say, oh, if silver only goes down to $12, I'll back up the truck and I'll buy 500 ounces. And the reality is maybe it ends up bottoming at 14 and they never get the opportunity. And so then it goes up to, 18 or something, and they missed out the opportunity. And that's why you want to catch the falling knife. You want to reach into the market when it's dropping and go ahead and start incrementally laying in that position. Number 7, do we have some data? And, people will throw around just crazy assertions with numbers attached to them. And then when you interrogate them about where did these data come from, they either don't answer or they backpedal or, they'll water down the original assertion. But when you can, you have to try to look and see, do we have some data? These Pack Fresh Legends cards are going to be put in Dominaria United collector boxes. What kind of data might we even be able to figure out to say what the value of those are? And, you never have the perfect data you would like to have. No matter if you, in real life, if you're instrumenting something with very accurate measurement devices that are all calibrated, there's still problems with those data. And so in this kind of world of especially TCG investing, where we don't even have a Bloomberg terminal to give us all kinds of awesome data, you have to do the best you can. And when it comes to using that data, you have to construct a model. And the great saying is, all models are wrong, but some are useful. You have to understand the limitations of your data, the limitations of your models, and how much confidence you can have in both of those things. But whenever you can, you have to try to use some data. You have to see if there's something you can find out, something that's been measured that you can leverage. Number 8, markets reward patience more richly and more consistently than they reward skill. And this again goes back to, you cannot make predictions of the future. Every time you are investing in something, you are trying to make a prediction, but you'll be wrong sometimes. And nobody has the skill to consistently beat everyone else in the market on the long term. Some people will do it for a couple years, maybe 5 years. Some people will have good careers where they're very disciplined and they beat the market. But the market in general, for regular people, which is what all of us are, the market will always reward patience more richly than it rewards skill. And part of the reason is you don't actually have the skill you think you have. Neither do I. I'm not good at this. I am patient. I'm willing to take a position in something and know through my long-term theses and through other data I've gathered in the past that almost every TCG product does pretty well on the long timeline. So I'm able to take a position of it and wait. And the market rewards you for that, for being patient, for not panicking, not FOMOing, not going and capitulating at the first sign of weakness, not letting price drive the sentiment. All those things. It rewards those things more richly than it rewards the false skill that you think you have, but you don't actually have. Number 9, the TCG market is much less rational than the stock, bond, real estate, or crypto markets. Yes, even much less rational than the crypto markets, because the capitalization here is lower, the liquidity is lower, the volume is lower. Everything about the TCG market is more inefficient than all the rest of these markets. And so the entire market becomes less rational because, frankly, it's more difficult to work in And so fewer people put effort towards working into it. Again, that's why we don't have something like a Bloomberg terminal for the TCG market. We can't go and tease all the great data and do simple comparisons on long timelines between complicated searches and all these things we would love to do for the TCG market. That ability isn't there because the market is tiny. There's not many participants. There's not much demand for that kind of product. And so because of that, it's just more irrational. And you're also dealing with a lot of card stores that are poorly capitalized, and they're run by people who frankly are trying to keep their business open, trying to keep their families fed, and to a great extent, they can't make decisions all the time with the long timeline in mind. They have to make decisions on what keeps the lights on and the doors open this month. And so because the market is inefficient, if you can identify those inefficiencies and you can learn to exploit them, you can sometimes gain a small advantage in the market. Or at the very least, you can identify things that may be slightly better opportunities on the long term. Obviously, when you go out and you buy a beaten down Modern Horizons 2 collector box for $360 because card stores had to panic sell to pay for Baldur's Gate and pay for Double Masters 22 and pay for electricity, then that's something where you can identify that inefficiency and exploit it. Obviously, Modern Horizons 2 collector booster box is worth way more than $360, but card stores had to capitulate and sell to stay alive. And so those kind of inefficiencies, because of the nature of the TCG market, those kind of inefficiencies are much more common, and you can try to look for them all the time. Number 10, the final one, we're all here to learn. And, I have said before that I have the benefit that there are now 800 of you who direct questions and comments and advice and other things towards me. You essentially proofread what I'm putting out. You correct my errors and help me learn a lot. And so we're all here to learn, and that's why it's important to keep the civil tone, keep being nice in comments, help each other out, ask questions, and be ready for answers. And I've been wrong on things before on this channel, and I've learned a lot from you guys, and I really appreciate that I can take a half-baked theory that I've only begun starting to formulate, bring it to you guys, and there will always be several of y'all who give me really great feedback that gets me thinking in the correct direction towards making a fully formed theory that I can then use for its predictive power to act on in the market. And that's the kind of thing I really appreciate. And so that's it. 10 foundational investing philosophy ideas, a final trade. These are kind of things that I've learned from 20 years in the stock market that I bring over to the TCG market. And it's a much different adventure here than it is in the stock market. It's a lot more fun, a lot more engaging, and it's zany at times looking at how this market operates. So thanks a lot to all my patrons, people who have enough faith in me and this project to agree to fund me on an ongoing basis so I can keep making this kind of content. Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate you guys. Everyone who views, leaves a like, comment, shares, and subscribe. I appreciate that too. It fuels the algorithm. It helps. The best thing you can do is share this channel with some of your friends, and I'll be recommending this video back to people for time to come because this will be a foundational video of the channel. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Join the Patreon. Thanks.